The jungle breathes around the stone spires of Angkor Wat. 1,000 years of growth clings to the edges of a monument that defies all logic. For centuries, the world called it a lost city, a wonder built over hundreds of years by a devout civilization. That is a lie. 37 years is all it took to raise the largest religious monument ever constructed. 37 years to move 52 million tons of sandstone, carved with a precision finer than a human hair, stacked 213 feet high into the sky. The numbers do not just impress, they condemn. To hit this deadline, the math is unforgiving. Every single day, for 37 years, 12 hours a day, 1 ton of stone must be quarried, transported, and set in place every single minute. No breaks, no mistakes, no mercy. For the men and women trapped beneath the weight of a god king's ambition. Monsoon rains turn the ground to slurry. Malaria-carrying mosquitoes swarm in clouds thick enough to block the sun. Venomous snakes nest in the cracks of the quarry walls. This is not a construction site. It is a slaughterhouse with a stone finish line. Now, imagine you are not the god King Suri of Armenthu, seated on a throne of gold and ivory. You are not the high priest, draped in silk and surrounded by incense. You are down there, in the mud. Your hands are raw, split open by the coarse hemp rope wrapped tightly around your palms. The rope is tied to a block of sandstone, 1 ton of solid rock cut from the cliffs of Mount Kulen, 50 kilometers from the temple site. Your shoulders burn with every step. Your lungs fill with the stench of rot and sweat. The man beside you stumbles, a crack echoes through the quarry, and a scream follows, sharp and final. The stone shifts and drags him forward, his leg crumpled beneath the weight. He grabs your ankle, his fingers digging into your calf, begging for help. The rope is still tied to your waist, so if he falls, you fall with him. The task waits for no one. The guards pace the edge of the platform, whips in their hands, eyes cold as the stone around you. The guard turns away for a second. Your broken friend is dragging you down. Do you stay and die with him, or kick him off the pedestal to complete your task? What is your move? The rope snaps, he plunges into the mud. The stone keeps moving. You completed your task that day. You did not sleep that night. The sound of his scream loops in your head, but you are alive. That is the first crack in the man you once were. Survival. Tastes like iron and regret. It also opens a door. Months pass. You learn to read the stone. You see how sandstone fractures along its natural grain? How a well-placed wedge can split a 10-ton block in a single strike? While others spend days hacking away. You learn the rhythm of the river. How monsoon floods can carry a ton of stone downstream faster than 100 men can drag it. The overseers notice. They stop hitting you. They hand you a whip. The weight of it is heavier than any rope. You stand on the platform now, looking down at the men in the mud. You see your old self in their eyes, raw, terrified, clinging to the edge of survival. A weary laborer stumbles, his rope slipping. The stone shifts without thinking. Your arm raises. The whip cracks. In that moment, you are no longer the prey. You are a gear in the great, unforgiving machine of Angkor. It turns human life into stone, into prayer, into a monument, to a god who does not see the blood soaking into the mud. Promotion follows. You are moved from the quarry to the temple site itself, to the heart of the impossible. A stone mountain built on a swamp. The entire site sits on waterlogged soil, soft enough to swallow a man whole. In the monsoon season, any other structure would sink, crack, collapse into the muck within a decade. But you know the secret. You hold the key to keeping a mountain floating. Laterite, the iron-rich red rock baked hard by the Khmer sun, porous enough to absorb floodwaters, strong enough to hold the weight of 52 million tons of stone. You oversee the laying of the foundation, a 20-foot deep bed of compacted laterite, spanning the entire 162.6 hectare site. Around it, you dig the moat, 200 meters wide, 4 meters deep, holding 20 million cubic meters of water. It is not just a defense, it is a balance. The moat locks the soil's moisture level in place, stopping the foundation from swelling and shrinking with the rains. The swamp no longer threatens the temple. it holds it up. To lock the sandstone blocks together without mortar, you turn to the Kwai people, the master blacksmiths of the Khmer Highlands. You order them to smelt more than 1 million hidden iron tenons using a closed chamber smoldering method that hardens the iron to withstand centuries of monsoons and earthquakes. These tiny metal pins fit into invisible grooves carved into the stone, binding the entire temple into a single, unshakable mass. The world will marvel at this seamless stonework for 1,000 years. But no one will know the price the Kai Smiths paid. But the foundation demands a price. The moat excavation cuts through stagnant water pools, breeding grounds for malaria. Thousands of workers fall sick, fever burning through their bodies, barely conscious in the mud. The work cannot stop. The task waits for no one. The God King's deadline looms. You order the infected zones sealed off. The sick are sealed behind earthen walls, left to the mercy of fate. The work continues. The laterite is laid. The moat fills with water, swallowing the names and traces of those who dug it forever. You tell yourself it is just for survival, right? Word of your genius reaches the palace. You are summoned to the inner sanctum, a dark chamber lined with gold, thick with the smoke of sandalwood incense. The God King sits before you. He does not ask about stone. He asks about gods. He wants a temple that does not just honor the gods. He wants a temple that is a god, a map of the cosmos carved in stone, a place where heaven and earth meet, where he can stand, not as a man, but as a living incarnation of Vishnu. You leave the sanctum with a new title, Royal Architect of Angkor. You are no longer a slave, no longer an overseer. You are the man who will build a heaven on earth, holding the power of life and death over 1 million workers. You have crawled from the dust, and now you will reach for the stars. But you have learned a hard truth in the mud of Mount Kulen. The gods do not build temples, men do. And the power that rules men is not piety, it is illusion. You design the temple around a single, perfect moment. The spring equinox, the day when the sun crosses the celestial equator, when day and night are perfectly balanced. At noon on that day, a single beam of sunlight will cut through the 120-foot height of the central tower, the zenith passage, and fall with pinpoint precision onto a stone pedestal 90 feet below. In the absolute darkness of the inner sanctum, the God King will stand there, bathed in light, while the crowd kneels in the shadow below. They will not see your calculations or the stone markers you set along the horizon to align the tower. They will see a miracle. You fill the temple walls with carvings that no one can fully explain. The four-tusked elephant, a creature that went extinct 2 million years before the first stone was cut, and the 9 planets of the solar system, mapped with a precision impossible for a civilization. Without telescopes, you build a hidden chamber beneath the sanctum, lined with quartz crystals and bronze wires, a device that hums with static when monsoon storms roll in. The priests call it a conduit to the gods. You know it is physics. You have stolen the language of the gods, turned math and astronomy into magic, and with that magic, you have become untouchable, a demigod in your own right, the only man who can speak to the heavens for the king. But there is one man who sees through the illusion, your old mentor, the priest who taught you to read the stars, who gave you the books of astronomy, who pulled you from the quarry and gave you a chance. He finds the blueprints for the hidden chamber, sees the calculations for the zenith passage, and knows the miracle is a lie. He threatens to tell the king to expose you, to send you back to the mud. To guard the God-making secret, you make an irreversible decision in that dark chamber. He never steps out of this temple again, because in this game, hesitation is death. 37 years pass. The final stone is set in place. The temple is complete. The God King is dead. Entombed in the heart of the monument you have built, you are the most powerful man in the Khmer Empire. Second only to the new king, you do not stop with the temple. You build a city, Angkor Thom, the great city, 3,000 square kilometers of canals, reservoirs, and farmland, home to 1 million people at a time when London had just 18,000 inhabitants. You build the West Beret, a reservoir 8 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, the largest man-made body of water in the pre-industrial world. Your water network feeds the fields, giving the empire 3 harvests a year, a wealth no kingdom on earth can match. You have tamed the swamp, the river, the land itself. You live in a palace lined with silk and gold. Servants wait on your every word, your hands soft with no trace of the hemp rope that once split them open. You have everything you ever dreamed of when you were in the mud of Mount Kulen, but at night you hear the screams. The man you kicked off the platform, the sick workers you left to die in the moat, the mentor you killed in the dark chamber. You stand on the top of the central tower, looking out over the city you built, and you feel nothing but emptiness. A hollow space in your chest where your soul used to be. You built a home for the gods, but there is no room for them in you. The trees tell the story first. The rings in the trunks of ancient teak trees, narrow and tight. A record of rain that never fell. A great drought has come to Angkor. Not for a year, not for a decade, for 30 years. The great reservoirs dry up. The West Beret, once a sea of fresh water, becomes a cracked bed of dust. The canals that fed the city run dry. The crops wither and die in the fields. The 3 harvests a year become 1, then none. Famine sweeps through the city. The 1,000,000 people you once fed now starve in the streets. Then the rains come, not gentle monsoons, but catastrophic floods. The kind that only come when the forest is cut down. When the land can no longer hold the water, the floods tear through the canal network, smashing the gates, washing away the levees you built. The water system that was your greatest achievement, the system that made Angkor great, collapses around you. You stand in your palace, the silk of your robes sticking to your skin with sweat, the air thick with the stench of stagnant water and despair. You hear the screams of the sick, the lepers cast out into the streets, the hungry crying for food. You fall to your knees in the inner sanctum before the statue of Vishnu, and you pray. You beg for help, for a miracle, for the gods to save the city you built for them. Silence. The gods do not answer. They never did for centuries. Later historians would tell the story of Angkor's fall. They would say the city was destroyed by invasion, by plague, by the collapse of a devout civilization that turned its back on the gods. That is a lie. The truth is colder. The truth is that Angkor was not destroyed. It was abandoned by the men who built it, by you. The world is changing. The great ships of the Ming Dynasty sail the South China Sea, carrying porcelain and silk, trading gold and spices across the oceans. The Mekong River, once just a highway for stone, is now a gateway to the world, to a new kind of power. Not the power of the gods, the power of gold, of trade, of a global economy rising from the dust of the old world. You have seen the gods fail. You have seen the temple you built crumble, the city you built starve. You have spent your life building a monument to a faith that never saved you, that never saved anyone. The court prepares to flee, to move south to Longvek, a new capital on the banks of the Mekong, close to the trade routes, close to the gold. The priests beg you to stay, to protect the temple, to defend the gods, to die with the city, if that is what it takes. You look at the temple, at the 52 million tons of stone you moved, at the zenith passage that no longer aligns, the canals that no longer flow, the gods that no longer answer. You think of the mud of Mount Kulen, of the man you kicked off the platform, of the mentor you killed, of all the blood that soaked into the stone for nothing. This is your final choice. You can stay, you can kneel before the gods you built, and die with the temple, a martyr to the faith you created. You can be remembered in the stone, a name carved into the walls, forgotten by the world when the jungle takes the city, or you can leave. You can board a ship on the Mekong, sail south to Longvek, embrace the new world of trade and gold. You can abandon the temple, abandon the gods, betray everything you built, everything you killed for, everything you once believed in. For one thing, survival. You crawled out of the dust, built a miracle for the gods, and then abandoned them for gold. Was the betrayal worth your survival? Drop your choice in the comments. What do you do?